And we continue to follow breaking news into the KXLY4 newsroom. The jury in the Joseph Duncan sentencing has decided Joseph Duncan will be executed for the murder of 9-year-old Dylan Groene. Going live to Boise now to federal prosecutor Tom Moss.
And I think by this verdict today, they have given voice to the victims and the people that were injured by the crimes involved in this case. Now, we don't celebrate the misfortune and judgment against an individual, but we do feel good about the law and the victory of justice, and we felt that's been the case here, and that we believe this verdict is a good result, it's a fair result, and it's the result that the law dictated. I feel that this jury had one of the heaviest burdens that any jury should ever have to deal with, given the evidence that was presented and what they had to take into consideration. And I have nothing but the utmost admiration for them and the attention they gave and the consideration they gave this case and their hard work and their studying of the facts and doing what they felt was right. If you have any questions, I'm pleased to be flanked by two of the finest people I know in the area of criminal investigation and management of justice system, and Don Robinson, who's the resident agent in charge of the FBI in Coeur d'Alene, and Mike Ginecco, who you've come accustomed to seeing in the courtroom. He was the agent investigator assigned to this case, and these folks have done a magnificent job in putting this together and keeping all of the facts and all of the information that was necessary lined up for this prosecution.
Tom, I have a question, Scott with Channel 2. In your experience, how long does it take before this death sentence is carried out? And does Mr. Duncan have the right to appeal, or what's next?
There is an automatic appeal when a death sentence is pronounced, so there will be an appeal in this case. How long it takes could vary, but it takes a long time. That my experience tells me it takes a long time.
Were you surprised by how quickly the jury came back? What were your expectations with the length of time that it would take to come back with this verdict?
I was not really surprised. I felt like the evidence was compelling, that it was clear, it was clean in terms of what was there, and there was basically no mitigation presented. And after they made their decision last Friday, I feel like I didn't really expect them to take very long today.
Have you ever heard of a death penalty case where it only took 3 hours for the jury to decide on the death penalty?
Well, no, I don't know how long it takes, but you can't compare one case to another. Usually, death cases involve issues of who done it and who committed the crime, and all kinds of issues that were not present in this case. This case was very clear. This defendant documented what he did. Not he didn't document everything. We didn't have everything he documented, but what we did recover and what these folks behind me were able to dig out of his computer, that was quite compelling, I would suggest.
Did the dynamics or the way you presented your case change at all because you had no opposing counsel?
Not really. It went faster, of course, and but no, we had a plan and we followed our plan and didn't alter anything in that regard.
How much do you think the fact that you didn't have opposing counsel actually helped out your case?
Well, it went faster, and it hung together better. In other words, we didn't have objections. We didn't have things that legal issues that we would have to interrupt and argue about, so that it went quicker. I think that the evidence that went in would have come in any event, and I am inclined to believe that the result would have been the same.
Can you help us out a little bit with the mechanics of what happens next? An automatic appeal, that'll be handled by your office again, or a different?
Yes, we will represent the United States on the appeal, and I expect that Mr. Duncan will have appellate counsel appointed for him. It will probably be a different set of attorneys, and it'll go forward in that manner.
And if the case isn't overturned on appeal, where will the execution be carried out?
I'm not sure where that would be. It would be wherever the U.S. Marshals Service chose to do it.
Tom, will there be any counseling provided to the jurors? You talked about the heavy burden, just the terrible nature of this case. Will they have some? I mean, those pictures, that was terrible stuff.
It was bad stuff, and I really am not prepared to answer that question. I know there was some discussion about that early on, but I've been focused on other things, and I don't know what is going to be made available to them.
What about for your staffers who have had to be immersed in this case for the last 3
Well,
years?
if anyone feels they need counseling, they will have it available to them.
You said that death sentence would take a long time. Obviously, it's different in the federal system than a lot of state systems. I mean, a couple of years, 4, do you have any idea? Could you see any picture there?
I can't be very clear on that. I've in the state system, I've had some death sentences, and it goes back quite a few years, and they're still in the process.
Federal system seems to be faster.
Well, it eventually becomes the same system, because the state system eventually appeals into the federal system. Our cases that I've prosecuted where death sentences have been pronounced in the past end out in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is where this case will end out. This case will get there quicker than through the state system, because before you get there from the state system, there has to be appeals that you have to exhaust your remedies there.
Can Mr. Duncan waive that automatic appeal if he desires? Or
No. Anything else?
Tom, you've been under a gag order for a long time. What was your first reaction when you found out that Joseph Duncan wanted to represent himself in this type of a case?
Yeah.
I would assume that that's not normal.
No, it's not normal, and it's a little bit surprising. On the other hand, it's hard to understand all of the reasoning behind it. I feel like he became dissatisfied with his attorneys because of some things that a direction. The way he explained it was that their approach to his defense was not what they wanted. He wanted them to do, and therefore he chose not to have them handle it.
Well,
Any other questions?
Why would you feel compelled to show the tapes to the jury?
Pardon?
Why do you feel compelled to show the tapes to the jury?
We had to prove various things, and our burden is beyond reasonable doubt. One of the things that we alleged and had to prove was that the crime that was committed was especially heinous, cruel, and depraved. This was the best evidence we had of that. This evidence was very critical to that issue, and that's why it had to be shown to the jury. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And again, you were listening to Thomas Moss, the U.S. Attorney for Idaho, who prosecuted Joseph Duncan in this case. A couple questions that came out of that Mr. Moss was not able to answer, we want to answer for you. In the federal system, the federal death row is located in Terre Haute, Indiana. That is where anyone who is executed for a federal crime is executed. They may be housed somewhere before that, but when it's time for execution, they go to the federal death row in Terre Haute, Indiana. Also, there were questions about whether or not the federal system is faster than the state system. As Mr. Moss mentioned, it takes a long time in a lot of these cases from sentencing to when that sentence is actually carried out. But we do know that in the federal system, they have executed 3 people since 2002, whereas for comparison in the state of Idaho, they have not executed someone since 1996. So generally, things do go faster in the federal system. That is because they only get that one automatic appeal, and after that, the only place to appeal after that would be the U.S. Supreme Court, who typically does not hear these types of cases. So this probably will move quicker, but the prosecutor in Riverside County, California, has already said they want to prosecute Duncan. They want to have him seek the death penalty there for the murder of 10-year-old Anthony Martinez. So Joseph Duncan may have to face charges in some other jurisdictions before he even begins his official sentence for the federal government. Again, we want to remind you, breaking news, Joseph Duncan will be executed for the murder of Dylan Groene. back in June of 2005. For a lot of you watching, this is really bringing this case full circle. A lot of you remember first hearing about the murders at Wolf Lodge back in May of 2005. A lot of you were here with us live the morning that Shasta Groene was found at the Denny's in Coeur d'Alene, and now you're hearing the resolution in this case. Joseph Duncan will be executed. We continue to follow this breaking news. We will break back in if we get more reaction from the federal courthouse in Boise, and you can continue to watch our coverage right now on KXLY.com.